It was a gray Monday morning when I walked into the office, clutching the same worn handbag I had carried for 5 years. My shoes had been polished until they shone, but the leather was cracked from years of use. My blouse, neatly ironed, was old enough that the color had faded. Still, I held my head high. I wasn't rich, but I was honest. I wasn't glamorous, but I worked harder than anyone in that building. The receptionist looked up and gave me a kind smile. She knew me well, but just as I reached the lobby, a voice cut through the air, sharp, mocking, dripping with arrogance. Well, look who decided to bless us with her fashion statement. It was Mr. Saeed, the manager, my boss. His laughter echoed across the polished marble floor, catching the attention of employees passing by. They froze, eyes darting between us. I tried to ignore him, my steps steady, but he wasn't done. Tell me, did you dig that blouse out of a donation bin? Or is this the new trend, poverty chic? The staff burst into uneasy chuckles, some out of fear, others simply eager to please him. My face burned, but I didn't respond. Years of humiliation had taught me silence was safer. But Saeed thrived on cruelty. He stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough for everyone to hear. You know, when clients walk in and see this, he gestured at me from head to toe, they'll think we're running a charity, not a business. The words sliced through me. I had sacrificed everything for this job, skipped meals to buy my son's school books, worked overtime without pay, endured endless disrespect just to keep food on the table. And yet, to him, I was a joke. Security, he barked suddenly. His voice carried like a gunshot. 2 guards standing near the door stiffened and looked toward us. Why are you standing around? Remove her from the building. I can't have this. Embarrassment dragging down the image of my company. Gasps rippled through the lobby. Even the receptionist's hands trembled as she clutched her notepad. I froze. Sir, I came here to work. My shift isn't even started yet. Saeed sneered. Work? You think showing up in rags counts as professional? This is my office, and I won't have beggars wandering around. Out now. The guards hesitated. They knew me. They'd seen me arrive every day before dawn, leaving late at night. One of them whispered, Sir, she's an employee. Do you want to keep your job? Saeed snapped, his face twisted with rage. Because if not, you can join her outside. The guard fell silent, shame written across his face. Slowly, he took a step toward me. My chest tightened, but I refused to let my tears fall. Instead, I lifted my chin. I have given years to this company, I said softly, my voice trembling but steady enough to be heard. And this is how you treat me. The room went silent. For a moment, even Saeed seemed surprised that I had dared to speak. But then he burst into mocking laughter, clapping his hands dramatically. Did you hear that? He jeered to the staff. She thinks loyalty excuses poverty. Newsflash, woman. This is a business, not a charity case. If you can't even dress properly, you don't belong here. Whispers spread among the employees. Some looked at me with pity. Others quickly turned away to avoid being dragged into the conflict. I stood there, heart pounding, every muscle screaming at me to run, but my pride rooted me in place. The guard reached out hesitantly, as if preparing to escort me out, and just as he did, Saeed smirked and leaned closer. Don't worry, he said, loud enough for the entire office to hear. The street is full of people like you. You'll fit right in once you're back where you belong. His laughter rang out again, cruel and echoing in the vast lobby. And at that moment, with everyone watching, with my dignity dangling by a thread, I realized this wasn't just about old clothes. This was about respect, about humanity itself. And though I didn't know it yet, justice was already on its way. As the guard's hands hovered near my shoulders, my mind drifted back, not to the office, not to the sneers around me, but to the life that had shaped me. I remembered the tiny kitchen of our rented home, its cracked walls and flickering bulb. Every morning at dawn, I would light the stove with trembling fingers, brewing weak tea because milk was too expensive. My son, Ali, would shuffle in, his school uniform neatly washed but worn thin at the elbows. He would smile, trying to hide his hunger, and I would pretend not to notice when he poured extra sugar into his cup to make the tea feel fuller. Amy, he would say softly, don't worry. One day, I'll buy you a big house where you won't have to wake up so early. I would smile, hiding my tears. Beta, I don't need a big house. I just need you to study hard and become the man your father always dreamed you'd be. My husband's face flashed before me. kind, tired eyes, a smile that had once been my anchor. He had passed away suddenly, leaving me with nothing but debts and a child to raise. In that moment, I had made a vow I would never let Ali feel the weight of the world, even if it crushed me. So I worked, long hours, extra shifts, weekends. I ironed clothes for neighbors at night, sold homemade pickles on the side, and still showed up to the office at sunrise, ready to prove myself. Every rupee went into Ali's fees, his books, his dreams. I never bought myself a new dress, never indulged in small luxuries. My colleagues bought designer handbags. I bought second-hand shoes for my son, but none of that mattered at work. To them, I was invisible, or worse, a target. Mr. Saeed especially saw me as easy prey. He laughed at my simplicity, mocked my food when I ate alone at lunch, and told clients I was just a clerk, nothing more. The other staff followed his lead, treating me with polite distance, as though poverty was contagious. Still, I endured it. For Ali, I remembered one particular evening, the memory burning sharp in my chest. Ali had been sick with fever, and the doctor demanded money up front. I had rushed to Saeed's office, hands shaking, asking for an advance on my salary. He hadn't even looked up from his glass of imported whiskey. "You think this is a welfare center?" He had sneered. "Your problems are not my concern. If you can't afford a child, maybe you should have thought twice before having one." The humiliation had stung worse than the doctor's bill. But that night, I had pawned the last piece of gold I owned, my wedding bangles, and paid for Ali's treatment. He recovered. My wrists remained bare. Now, standing in the lobby with security about to drag me out, all of those sacrifices weighed heavily on me. I had given everything, my youth, my dignity, my comfort for my son, for this job, for survival, and yet here I was, reduced to a spectacle, laughed at like a beggar in front of strangers. But deep inside, beneath the shame, there was a quiet flame. I had survived too much to break now. I had carried burdens heavier than Saeed's arrogance, and while he believed his wealth made him untouchable, I knew something he didn't. Respect isn't bought with money. It's earned with sacrifice, with love, with integrity. And though I didn't yet realize it, my years of silent endurance had not gone unnoticed. The same humility that he mocked was the very thing that would one day save me. The guards hesitated, still unsure whether to obey Saeed's outrageous command. Their hesitation only made him angrier. He raised his voice, his arrogance filling the lobby like poison. "What are you waiting for?" he barked. "Throw her out, or shall I show you all what happens when someone tries to stain the reputation of my company?" Dozens of employees had gathered now, peeking from behind glass doors and cubicles. The whispers began. "Why is he doing this in front of everyone? She's worked here for years. This isn't right. Hush, don't get involved, or you'll be next." Saeed's sharp eyes caught the murmurs. He thrived on them, like a predator smelling fear. He turned dramatically, addressing the staff as though delivering a grand speech. "Listen carefully, all of you." His voice boomed. "This is a place of class, of standards, of success. And then there are people like her." He jabbed a finger at me, his lips curling into a smirk. "Who drag us down with their cheap clothes, their peasant habits, their pitiful excuses for professionalism." Laughter rippled through a few of the junior employees, desperate to stay on his good side. Others lowered their heads, ashamed but silent. My hands clenched tightly around the strap of my bag. My throat burned, but I refused to let him see me cry. Saeed, enjoying the spotlight, strutted across the lobby. "You all need to understand something. Success isn't for everyone. Some people are born to rule, to lead, to inspire, and others like her are born to serve, to stay silent, to stay invisible." He turned back to me, his eyes gleaming with cruelty. "People like you don't belong in my company. In fact," he paused dramatically, scanning the room, "people like you don't belong in society's higher circles at all. You belong in the slums, with beggars and trash." The words landed like knives. Gasps echoed across the hall. Even those who had laughed before now shifted uncomfortably. His arrogance had crossed the line, and they knew it. But Saeed wasn't finished. He thrived on humiliation, on breaking people down until they felt smaller than dust. "You think hard work is enough?" he sneered. "You think loyalty matters? Let me tell you something." He leaned in closer, his voice dropping into a venomous whisper. "The world doesn't care about your sacrifices. It only cares about appearances. And you, with your sad little clothes and your tragic story, are a disgrace to this office." I met his gaze, my lips trembling, but I stayed silent. That silence enraged him further. He threw his hands in the air and turned back to the crowd. "See this? Not even a defense, because deep down, she knows I'm right." A few of the staff looked at me then, really looked at me. Some with pity, some with guilt, but none with the courage to speak. Their silence was its own betrayal. Saeed's voice rose again, echoing against the marble walls. "Remember this, everyone, I will not allow mediocrity to pollute my company. If you can't keep up, if you can't look the part, then get out. I don't care how many years you've worked here. I don't care what you've sacrificed. You either shine or you vanish." The cruel words settled like ashes in the room. My body trembled, my heart heavy with shame. I had given everything for this place, and still I was treated as less than human. The guard shifted again, waiting for the final command, and Saeed, with one last smirk, barked, "Enough wasting time, remove her. Let everyone see what happens when you don't belong." His words echoed like a death sentence, and yet, somewhere beyond the humiliation, beyond the despair, the faintest flicker of destiny stirred. Something was about to change, something Saeed could never have imagined. The silence after Saeed's final order was suffocating. All eyes turned to the guards. They shifted uncomfortably, their hands twitching at their sides. "Go on," Saeed barked. "What are you waiting for? Do I need to spell it out?" One of the guards, Imran, took a hesitant step toward me. His jaw was tight, his eyes apologetic. He knew me, he had seen me arrive early, leave late, carrying stacks of files, smiling politely despite exhaustion. Sir Imran's voice cracked. "She's worked here for years. Throwing her out like this, it's not right." Gasps rippled through the staff. For a moment, hope sparked in my chest. Someone had spoken, someone had dared. But Saeed's face darkened like a thundercloud. He marched up to the guard, his fingers stabbing into the man's chest. "Do you want to keep this job, or shall I find someone else to guard the door?" Imran swallowed hard, his defiance shrinking under the weight of that threat. Slowly, he lowered his gaze. The spark of resistance died. "Good," Saeed spat. "Now, do your job, both of you." The other guard moved reluctantly. Their footsteps echoed like drumbeats in my ears. My breath caught, but I forced myself to speak, my voice trembling but steady. "Please, I'm not asking for mercy, only dignity. Don't drag me out like a criminal. I've done nothing wrong." A heavy silence settled. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, someone would intervene, that a shred of humanity remained in the room. But Saeed only laughed, a sound so cruel it twisted my stomach. "Dignity? You think you deserve dignity?" He turned to the staff, his voice rising theatrically. "Let this be a lesson for all of you. Mediocrity will always be crushed under excellence. People like her," he jabbed a finger toward me, "don't get dignity, they get discarded." The guards reached me. Imran's hand hovered just above my arm, trembling. He couldn't even look at me. I clutched my bag tighter, my knuckles white. "Don't touch me," I whispered. My voice shook, but there was steel in it. "If I must leave, I'll walk on my own feet, but I will not be dragged like trash." For the first time, Saeed faltered. His smirk froze, irritation flickering across his face. My refusal to break, to bow, to beg it unsettled him, but his arrogance quickly returned. "Fine," he sneered. "Walk yourself out. Then, either way, the result is the same. You're finished here." He turned to the staff again, enjoying the spectacle. "Remember her face. Remember what happens when you don't meet my standards. Loyalty means nothing without status. Effort means nothing without image. She's a living example of failure." The whispers grew louder now. Some employees shifted uncomfortably, their faces pale with guilt. Others lowered their eyes, unwilling to witness more. But none moved forward, none defended me. I felt the weight of every stare pressing down, the shame burning in my chest. But beneath it all, a strange calm settled. They could strip me of my job, they could mock my clothes, but they could not steal my self-respect, not unless I allowed them to. I lifted my chin, meeting Saeed's gaze head. For the first time, I saw a flicker of unease in his eyes. My silence wasn't submission, it was defiance. "Out," he roared, furious that I had not broken. "Out now, before I have you dragged by your hair." The guards moved again, torn between their duty and their conscience. The staff held their breath, frozen in cowardice. And in that unbearable moment, just as the humiliation was about to reach its peak, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the far end of the lobby. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Heads turned, whispers hushed. Someone important had arrived, and Saeed had no idea his world was about to collapse. The guards were inches away from laying their hands on me when the sound of footsteps echoed across the marble lobby. Slow, firm, commanding, tap, tap, tap. Every head turned. A tall figure strode through the glass doors, dignified, confident, exuding authority without even speaking a word. It was Mr. Kamal, the true owner of the company. My breath caught. I hadn't seen him in months. He rarely visited this branch. His presence was like a storm breaking, heavy and undeniable. The entire atmosphere shifted in an instant. The staff scrambled to attention, standing straighter, smoothing their clothes, pretending they hadn't just been part of a cruel spectacle. Even the guards froze, their hands dropping from my arms as though burned. But the most dramatic change was in Saeed. Just seconds earlier, he had been barking orders, his voice dripping with arrogance. Now, his face drained of color, and a nervous smile twitched at his lips. "Sir," Saeed's tone flipped, sickly sweet. He rushed forward, practically bowing. "What an unexpected honor. If I had known you were visiting, I would have prepared a proper welcome." Mr. Kamal didn't even glance at him. His sharp eyes swept the room, taking in the tension, the frozen stares, the unnatural silence. Finally, they landed on me, standing with my head held high, my bag clutched tightly against me. His gaze softened. "What," he said slowly, his deep voice cutting through the air, "is happening here?" The question hung heavy. No one dared to answer. Saeed, desperate to regain control, burst into nervous laughter. "Ah, nothing serious, sir. Just a small misunderstanding with one of the junior staff. I was handling it before you arrived." Mr. Kamal's brows drew together. His eyes flicked to the guards, then to the wide-eyed employees watching silently from the corners. His voice hardened. "It doesn't look like a misunderstanding to me. It looks like intimidation." The word hit the room like a stone in still water. The staff shifted uneasily. Saeed's forced grin faltered. "No, no, sir, you've misunderstood me," Saeed stammered, his hands flailing as if trying to erase the truth. "This woman, she was disrespectful." "Yes, that's it. She was disrupting the office. I was simply maintaining order. You know how important our company's image is." He shot me a venomous glance, as though blaming me for his unraveling story. But Mr. Kamal didn't look convinced. He stepped closer, his shoes clicking against the marble, his presence filling the space with authority. "Is that so?" he said, his voice measured. "Strange, because, from where I stand, it looks as though she was the one being disrespected." The whispers returned, louder this time. The employees exchanged looks, relief flickering in their eyes. Someone was finally speaking the truth. Saeed's face flushed crimson. His arrogance had always shielded him, but under the owner's gaze, it crumbled into panic. "Sir, please, you know me. I've always been loyal to this company. I would never mistreat an employee. This is just a misunderstanding blown out of proportion." His words tumbled out like a desperate man grasping at straws, but Mr. Kamal's eyes stayed fixed on me. He studied my tired face, my faded clothes, the defiance still burning in my gaze. Despite the humiliation I had endured, something unspoken passed between us. Recognition, familiarity, respect. Finally, he turned back to Saeed. His expression was unreadable, but his voice carried an edge of warning. "I think," Mr. Kamal said slowly, "you owe me an explanation, and you'd better pray it's convincing." The room held its breath. The balance of power had shifted. Saeed was no longer the predator. He was the prey, and for the first time, I felt the weight of hope pressing against my heart. The air was thick with tension. Saeed's fake smile twitched, his hands wringing nervously. The staff stared in silence, eyes darting between Mr. Kamal and me. Then, Mr. Kamal took a step closer, not toward Saeed, but toward me. And then, the unexpected happened. His voice softened, almost incredulous. "Is it really you?" My heart skipped. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it. But no, his expression had shifted from stern authority to warmth, to something deeply personal. The room gasped collectively. You know her, sir," one of the employees whispered, unable to contain the shock. Mr. Kamal's eyes never left mine. "Know her. This woman isn't just an employee." His voice resonated, every word deliberate. Years ago, when I was hospitalized after that accident in Murray, she was the nurse who refused to leave my side. When even private doctors hesitated, she worked tirelessly day and night. I'm standing here today because of her. The lobby fell silent, every face turning toward me with newfound awe. I swallowed hard, overwhelmed by the sudden flood of memories, the freezing nights in the hospital, the exhaustion in my bones, the determination that kept me going despite my own struggles. I had never expected recognition, certainly not here, and not like this. Saeed's jaw dropped. The blood drained from his face as he stammered, "Yes, sir, I didn't know, of course, you didn't know." Mr. Kamel's voice cut like steel, because you never cared to look beyond a person's clothes. All you saw was someone you thought beneath you. The sting of those words rippled across the room. The same staff who had laughed nervously at my humiliation now looked at Saeed with disgust. I stood frozen, my worn dupatta clutched in trembling hands, the weight of vindication almost too heavy to carry. For years, my sacrifices had been invisible, and now, in the very place I had been shamed, my worth was being proclaimed by the highest authority. But Mr. Kamal wasn't finished. "This woman," he said firmly, turning to the room, "is a symbol of loyalty and sacrifice." While some here, his eyes darted to Saeed, sharp as knives, used power to belittle others. She used compassion to save a life, my life. The staff exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from silent fear to cautious admiration. A few even lowered their eyes, ashamed they hadn't spoken up earlier. Saeed, on the other hand, looked like a man watching the ground crumble beneath his feet. "Sir, please, if I'd known her history. Mr. Kamal's brow arched, his voice laced with disdain. "Respect isn't granted only to those with titles or stories you deem worthy. Every person under this roof deserves dignity, whether you know their past or not." His words struck deep. Some of the staff shifted uncomfortably, as though realizing how complicit they'd been in my humiliation. I blinked back tears. For so long, I had carried myself with quiet strength, never demanding recognition, never expecting it, and now, that strength was finally being acknowledged. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. Saeed, trembling, exposed as a cowardly tyrant. Me, the woman mocked for her old clothes, suddenly revealed as someone invaluable to the very man Saeed had tried to impress. The suspense hung thick. Mr. Kamal's voice dropped lower, heavy with finality. "Now," he said, his gaze cutting straight through Saeed, "tell me, what exactly were you doing, ordering security to throw out the woman who once saved my life?" The silence that followed was crushing. All eyes bore into Saeed, waiting for his excuse, his downfall. For the first time since the humiliation began, I wasn't the powerless one. The tables had turned, and everyone knew justice was coming. The silence after Mr. Kamel's words was suffocating. All eyes locked onto Saeed, who stood there pale, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Then, he forced out a laugh, a weak, trembling laugh that echoed awkwardly in the hall. "Sir, you've misunderstood completely," he said, adjusting his tie with shaky hands. "I was just joking. You know me. I have a sense of humor. I only meant to lighten the mood." Nobody laughed. Not a single soul. Mr. Camel's eyes narrowed. "A joke." His tone was calm, but every syllable carried weight. "You call mocking someone's poverty and ordering security to throw her out a joke?" Saeed swallowed hard, his smirk faltering. "Sir, of course not like that. I was testing the staff. Yes, I wanted to see how they'd react to such a situation. You know, a leadership exercise." The employees exchanged glances, their lips tightening to suppress scoffs. His excuses were thinner than tissue paper. One of the junior staff whispered, just loud enough to be heard, "Leadership exercise, my foot." Mr. Kamel's head tilted. "Interesting. Then why were you laughing when you said she didn't belong in your company?" Saeed's forehead glistened with sweat. He tugged at his collar, his voice cracking. "Sir, I only said that to push her to be better dressed, to inspire her." The staff couldn't contain themselves anymore. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Disgust, mockery, disbelief. His carefully built aura of control was dissolving like sugar in water. I stood silently, my heart pounding as I watched him stumble over his own lies. For years, he had humiliated others without consequence, and now, stripped of his arrogance, he looked small, pitiful. But Mr. Kamal wasn't done. His gaze swept over the room, landing on the staff. "Enough of his excuses. Tell me the truth. Is this the first time he has treated someone like this?" The room stiffened. People hesitated, eyes darting nervously. They had been silent for so long, out of fear, but today, with the owner demanding answers, the dam finally broke. A young receptionist spoke first, her voice trembling. "Sir, it's not the first time. He mocks us daily. Sometimes he throws files at us when he's angry." Another voice joined in, the accountant. "He deducts salaries without reason. Last month he cut mine because I requested a day off from my mother's surgery." The confessions poured out like floodwater, each sharper than the last. Every testimony painted a clearer picture of Saeed, not as a leader, but as a tyrant who thrived on crushing others. Saeed's face grew red, then pale. His hands shook as he pointed at the staff. "Lies. They're all lying. They're jealous of me, that's all. They want to ruin my reputation." But the sheer number of voices rising against him made his protests sound pathetic. Mr. Kamal raised a hand, silencing the room. His face was stone, his voice calm, yet unyielding. "Enough. A true leader uplifts others, not tramples them. Today you've exposed yourself. No one had to ruin your reputation. You did that yourself." Saeed's mouth opened to argue, but no words came. He was trapped. His arrogance had no escape route, no mask left to wear. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, the kind of fear that comes when a man realizes the empire he built on cruelty is collapsing before him. And the audience, every single person in that hall, knew one thing: Saeed's downfall had only just begun. The air felt electric, heavy with anticipation. Everyone knew what was coming, yet no one dared to blink. Saeed stood trembling, his back against the wall of truth, while Mr. Kamal's eyes bore into him like a judge delivering sentence. "Enough of your excuses, Saeed," Mr. Kamal said, his voice sharp enough to slice through the silence. "For years, I trusted you to manage this company, and in my absence, you've turned it into a kingdom of cruelty." Saeed dropped to his knees. The once feared boss, now stripped of confidence, looked like a beggar pleading for scraps. "Sir, please, don't say that. I've only ever worked for the company's best interest. These people are exaggerating. You know how staff can be quiet." Mr. Kamal's roar shook the room. Saeed froze, his mouth clamping shut. Mr. Kamal turned to the staff. "All of you have suffered under his arrogance. Today, you will witness justice." He faced Saeed again, his words deliberate, effective immediately. "You are stripped of your position as manager. You will hand over every key, every file, every ounce of authority you once misused." A collective gasp swept across the hall. Saeed's face went white as chalk. "No, sir. Please, don't do this to me in front of everyone. Give me another chance. I beg you." His hands shook as he tried to grab Mr. Kamal's feet, but the older man stepped back, disgusted. "You mocked others publicly, Saeed. Now you will taste the same shame." Mr. Kamal gestured toward the staff. "Security not to drag her out," he said, pointing at me, "but to escort him out, the same way he humiliated others." The irony hit like a thunderbolt. The very guards who had been ordered to throw me out stepped toward Saeed instead. "No, wait," Saeed shrieked, stumbling backward. "Not like this. Please, I can't." But the guards grabbed his arms. The staff, who had once cowered under his authority, now watched with grim satisfaction. Some even whispered prayers of gratitude. Others muttered, "Finally, he's getting what he deserves." I stood silently, my old dupatta still draped over my shoulders, my dignity intact. For the first time, my silence wasn't weakness, it was power. Saeed flashed, tears streaming down his face. "Sir, forgive me. I'll change, I swear. Don't ruin me like this." But Mr. Kamal's voice was steady. "You ruined yourself the moment you forgot that respect is every human's right. This company will no longer carry your poison." The guards dragged Saeed toward the exit. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his once proud posture broken. The man who had mocked my clothes now looked more pitiful than anyone in the room. As the doors closed behind him, a heavy silence lingered, followed by a wave of relief. The atmosphere had shifted. The tyrant was gone. Justice had been served. Mr. Kamal turned to me, his expression softening. "Arifa, you have endured more than anyone should. Today, your dignity has been restored." I lowered my eyes, overwhelmed, tears slipping silently down my cheeks. For once, they were not tears of shame, but of vindication. The contrast was complete. Saeed, the man of power, left in disgrace, and me, the woman mocked for her worn clothes, stood tall in honor. The audience, both in that room and those watching this story, had what they craved: justice laid bare, dignity restored, arrogance destroyed. The room still buzzed with the echoes of Saeed's downfall. His cries and desperate pleas lingered in everyone's memory. But now, with him gone, the atmosphere felt lighter, almost sacred. Mr. Kamal turned toward me, his eyes kind. Arifa, today justice was done. But more than that, the truth about your worth was revealed. My lips trembled. For a moment, I couldn't find words. The humiliation I had endured still stung, but standing there, with dignity restored, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Slowly, I bowed my head. Sir, I said softly, my voice breaking, I never wanted revenge. I never wanted anyone to suffer because of me. All I ever wanted was a little respect, a place where I could work honestly, without being shamed for who I am. The staff shifted uneasily, guilt heavy on their faces. Many avoided my eyes, remembering how they had stood in silence while I was mocked. Some even wiped their eyes, moved by the simplicity of my words. Mr. Kamal's voice was warm but firm. And you will have it. From this day forward, no one in this company will dare look down on you again. Your dignity is untouchable. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I forced a smile. Thank you, sir, but please, don't think of me as special. There are many like me, mothers, widows, fathers, sons who sacrifice everything quietly, yet walk through life unseen. I only hope that no one else has to suffer the way I did. A silence fell over the hall, the kind that pierces deeper than any scolding ever could. The staff's eyes glistened with realization. They had witnessed cruelty and done nothing. They had judged a woman for her clothes, never caring to see her sacrifices. One by one, they stepped forward. The receptionist who had earlier whispered nervously spoke first. Arifa, I'm sorry. I should have spoken up. We all should have. The accountant lowered his head. You showed us today what true strength looks like. Forgive us for not standing by you. Their words broke the last wall inside me. My tears finally spilled, but they weren't bitter anymore. They were cleansing, carrying years of buried pain away. I pressed my palms together, humbly shaking my head. I hold no anger. All of us are human. What matters is that we learn, and we treat each other better tomorrow. The room seemed to exhale. The sharp tension that had gripped every corner softened into something tender, respect, unity, and a quiet vow never to repeat the mistakes of the past. Mr. Kamal, visibly moved, placed a hand over his heart. Arifa, in a world obsessed with wealth and appearances, you've reminded us what truly matters: character, sacrifice, and dignity. You've given me a lesson today, too. I looked at him, stunned. Me, a lesson to you. Yes, he said firmly, because power and money mean nothing if they blind us to humanity. Today, you've shown us all what real wealth looks like. A few staff members clapped softly, and soon the sound grew, filling the hall with genuine applause, not the empty kind given to authority, but the heartfelt kind reserved for those who've touched the soul. I lowered my gaze, humbled. I had never sought the spotlight, never asked to be admired, yet here I was, receiving the one thing I had prayed for quietly, night after night: respect. The cruel chapter had closed, but in its place, a new bond of compassion had begun, between me and the staff, between truth and justice, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. The hall slowly emptied, but the echoes of the day lingered like an unforgettable melody. The same place where humiliation had once burned, now carried the fragrance of dignity restored. I stood near the exit, gathering my things, when Mr. Kamal spoke once more. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of final truth. Let today be remembered by everyone here, he said, addressing the remaining staff. Power, position, wealth, they are temporary, but respect is eternal. The words sank deep. People nodded, their expressions thoughtful, as though something inside them had shifted permanently. He glanced at me, then back at the group. You all saw what arrogance does. It blinds a man, makes him believe he is untouchable. Saeed's downfall was not my punishment. It was his own doing. Arrogance destroys itself. The staff murmured in agreement. Then his voice softened. And you also saw what quiet sacrifice means. This woman, who walked in with worn clothes, carried more honor in her heart than the one who mocked her. Never judge a person by what they wear, by what they own, or by where they come from. True worth lies in character, sacrifice, and dignity. I felt my chest tighten with emotion. These were the words I had lived my life by silently, without expecting anyone to notice. And now, they were spoken aloud for all to hear. One of the younger employees whispered, almost to himself, from today. I'll never look at someone's clothes the same way again. That was the lesson. That was the victory. Not Said's downfall, not even my vindication, but the shift in hearts, the awakening of respect. I stepped forward, my voice steady though tears threatened to spill again. Sir is right. Life tests us in strange ways. Some carry their pride like a crown, and some carry their burdens quietly. But at the end of the day, only one thing remains: how we treat each other. A hush followed. Even those who had remained silent earlier now looked at me with admiration. No longer for my story, but for the truth in my words. Mr. Kamal gave a small nod. Arifa, you've said it better than I could. This company will remember this day not as the fall of a boss, but as the rise of respect. The staff clapped again, not loudly, but warmly, a collective acknowledgement of the new chapter beginning among them. I walked out of the building, the sunlight hitting my face. My clothes were still old, still simple, but today, I didn't feel invisible. Today, I walked taller than ever before, because dignity doesn't come from fabric stitched together. It comes from the soul. And as I stepped into the world beyond those glass doors, I carried with me not just relief, but a truth worth passing on. Never judge someone by their clothes or position. True worth lies in character, sacrifice, and dignity. Arrogance eventually destroys itself, but respect for others builds honor. The story was over, but its lesson would echo long after.